I think some people self-select. Like I was a parentified child, immigrant family, very much like had to handle all my stuff at a very early age. And so like letting people in and letting people take care of me has always been a challenge. I've always been the caregiver. I think many healers are.
This is Rebel Therapist, a podcast where you get to hear therapists and healers get vulnerable and real about our own growth and healing. I'm your host, Annie Schusler, a healer and former therapist. My favorite kind of practitioner is the kind that wouldn't ask their client to do anything they wouldn't do themselves. My guest today did some significant healing at a psilocybin ceremony at a retreat center in Mexico. She takes us there and explains why she was able to heal in that environment in ways she hadn't before. You'll also hear how and why she does psychedelic work as a therapist. Dr. Cheryl Tien, PsyD, is a licensed clinical psychologist who helps individuals navigate grief, identity, and life transitions with a culturally attuned, trauma-informed approach. She specializes in psychedelic integration, supporting clients in making meaning of experiences with medicines like MDMA and psilocybin in a grounded, evidence-based way. Her work centers on safety, ethics, and translating profound experiences into sustainable change in everyday life. Welcome, Cheryl. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, good to see you. Good to hear you.
You too. So I want to find out from you first, how would you describe the kind of work that you do and who you do it with, just broadly? I know we could probably talk about that for an hour, but just broadly. Yeah.
That is such a good question. I'm at such a crossroads in my career right now. I just passed my final licensing exam like a week and a half ago.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yes,
Congratulations.
thank you. So I'm waiting for my psychologist license from the
Mhm.
Board of Psychology right now here in California. So psychologist, soon to be licensed psychologist, hopefully in the next few weeks or so. And right now, I'm in private practice. Being a generalist therapist, I see people with anxiety and depression. I've had the opportunity to dabble in a lot of different modalities and populations throughout my career. But I would say, as I'm looking at launching my own business in the coming months, now that I'm going to be independently licensed, I'm a therapist who works with people with deep pains and deep traumas that perhaps go back into their ancestry.
Mm.
And that work has been incredibly meaningful and empowering just for my own personal struggles. Like, I think there ends up being a lot of grief work in my work. I'm a certified psychedelic practitioner as well. So leverage my knowledge and my experience with psychedelics to help people in therapy. And yeah, that's what I do.
Amazing. Okay, so like getting your license, in what, if any, ways does it kind of change and just like give you more permission to do things the way that you want to do them? Or like, is there
Yeah.
anything that shifts where you're like, this is my fucking show now, or whatever words you would put to it?
Yeah, it's a little bit of golden handcuffs.
Mm,
As somebody who's really benefited from psychedelic medicines, which I will continue talking about. That's what I plan on talking a lot about in my healing journey today. It closes, unfortunately, a lot of doors right now. Psychedelic, MDMA in particular, was sort of well on its way to being passed, and we were all kind of shocked that it didn't pass FDA approval. And there's a lot of advocacy work now trying to change that. So I'm hopeful in the coming years it will change. There are a lot of really exciting things happening that show a lot of promise. So I'm excited to have my license in that way because it feels like it gives me more ground to stand on in rooms where that advocacy work matters. I was really torn between getting licensed, which is why it took me a few years. I graduated with my degree several years ago and had the chance to sit the licensing exam sooner. But, you know, through my work with you, actually, I was sort of teetering the line of like, should I not? And ultimately, with the way the world is going, the license just affords more opportunities, especially if we enter into an economic downturn and I need to really worry about my family. So, in a lot of ways, it sort of closed a lot of doors because I have to, now I have to protect the license. But then
Mhm.
it also opens a lot of doors in terms of like my legitimacy and my subject matter expertise and my advocacy work.
Yeah. I mean, I know you didn't do it for me, but I do wanna say thank you for doing that work and being willing to be a licensed person in those rooms fighting for that. Like, that's so huge.
It's tough. And I'm grateful to have found colleagues who walk the path with me,
Mhm.
but it's tough. There's a lot of opinions and voices in these rooms and spaces. There's a lot of assumptions, but I do think that, right now psychedelic medicine is, that you don't do above ground, I should say, quote unquote, is really costly and really
Mhm.
inaccessible.
Yeah.
And it's gonna take a lot of advocacy work to get insurances to cover it and to get it just more accessible for people who need it.
Yeah, it's so true, and it's been such a game changer in my life and just, like, opening up healing that I didn't know was possible for me. I was just like,
Mhm.
"Okay, this is alright. This life I'm living,
Yeah,
this'll yeah, this is good."
yeah.
I didn't know it was possible to heal so much more deeply. So, yeah, so important.
Mm.
So, for you, where do you wanna start around talking about your own experiences with psychedelics?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've had the opportunity to, have my own relationship with psychedelics, unguided or self-guided. But let's start with, I think I'll start with my experience going to retreat.
Mm.
I went to a psilocybin retreat in Mexico a couple years ago, and I'll actually be going again. It was a retreat run by a colleague, and in Mexico it's legal.
Mhm.
Like the medicine is provided by the government and the universities there out of these retreat centers. And so many psychedelic practitioners here in the States will travel to areas where it's legal to get that experiential learning.
Mhm.
So even like learning to become a practitioner has such a cost barrier because like, I had the opportunity to like travel and I actually I was under a very traditional Mexican facilitated ceremony by a dear friend and colleague of mine who I actually did my training with, which is how I learned about the retreat as well. That's the other thing is that,
Mm.
it's tough to market these things. So you really kind of have to like dive in and form relationships with people to see what offerings are out there.
That's what happened for me too. I mean, my path is different in that I'm not a facilitator at all, but, like
Yeah.
but yeah, getting invited into something,
Mhm.
it just happened backdoor. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. So I did it just outside of Mexico in the mountains of Tepoztlan. I'll be going back there in a
Mhm.
couple of months. And I was really grieving the loss of a client as
Mm.
well as a couple things that happened. I lost a client to suicide or a former
Mm.
client to suicide,
Mhm.
which is almost as common as miscarriages are. About 1 in 3 therapists lose clients to suicide,
Yeah.
which is not something they tell you until you join the club.
Yeah.
So that happened, and I was in a position where, like, I was left in the dark and, like, I was not aware, and so, like, unlike some other therapists who go through this, like, I wasn't worried about liability, but I was sort of processing this grief of, like, what could I have done differently for this person to trust me?
Mm.
And, like, ultimately, we know therapists go to therapist school, and they're like, "It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when." If people want
Mhm.
to be dead, they will be.
Yeah.
But it really made me as a therapist lose safety in the therapeutic space.
Mm.
And I already knew the limitations of one-on-one psychotherapy and like it can be so healing and so amazing and magical. And it is a container. And sometimes it doesn't provide everything that people need. So that happened, and then about 6 months after that, I was assaulted here in San Francisco, intervening on a domestic violence situation, and somebody racially attacked me, spit on my face, and, like, thankfully, my friend was there and pulled me away.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, Cheryl.
and,
Wow.
like, there was a baby in harm's way, and so we distracted him enough that the baby got away and was safe. So, um, that never really resolved, like, nothing ever really came of it. But those 2 big things that happened really shook the foundation of my safety.
Yeah, I'm just imagining, like, were those things living in your nervous system
Yeah.
moment to moment?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
I was so lucky. Like at the time both events happened, I was still getting tons of supervision. I was in therapy. Like I had already set up my mental health sort of like support team, and then lots of my friends and colleagues are therapists, and my husband is so wonderful and loving. Ironically, one of the more annoying symptoms that has sort of ebbed and flowed since these events is, as I've had other losses over the last few years, I get these weird, like, fears and, like, just, like, visuals is the best way I can describe
Mm.
it, of, like, my husband dying violently in front of me.
Ah.
Um, and, like, they get worse the more care he gives me. It's really frustrating,
Mm.
actually. And so that's something that, like, sort of really
Can
stays in
I
my nervous system.
Is it okay if I ask you about that one?
Absolutely.
So, like, that's really intense, and so, like, I'm imagining that happening for me with my partner, and it made sense to me, and I don't know if it was for the right reason,
Mhm.
but it made sense to me that it would get worse the more cared for I felt
Yeah.
by my partner, because it's
Yes.
like it's that attachment being threatened
Yes.
because
Yes.
it's so strong, that's so painful.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Like, he was so caring, like, took on way more of the household work, he gave me
Mhm.
permission to really scale back my practice, and
Mm.
he just became such a solid rock that I was like, well, I think my brain and my nervous system were like, "Well, you've had everything ripped out from under you, and, like,
Mhm.
there's no safety, so, of course, this is also gonna get ripped out from under you, and because he's so strong and he's been so wonderful, like, it's gonna be so much worse if he gets torn away."
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, there's this horrible visual,
Mhm.
and then yeah, what else?
Well, then it went on for months, and it would ebb and flow, and then there would be some nights or nightmares where it would get better and worse, and, like, because I had scaled back my practice, I really had to be judicious financially about what treatments I was gonna seek. Like, a lot of people recommended EMDR, which I've not done, but I know a lot of people have had a lot of success with. I
Mhm.
was doing talk therapy. It wasn't really like, even the somatic stuff, like, wasn't really touching it, and
Mhm.
then finally, I was like, my friend is doing another retreat. She's willing to work with me, she, like, knows what's happening with me, I trust her.
Mm.
Psychedelics have always been such a safe space for me.
Mhm.
And, I had not yet sat with the medicine, independently. Like, I've never sat with it under a guide or in a container like that before. It's always sort of as a peer or within a casual setting or myself. And so I made the call, we decided to do it, had a prep call with it, and it was a group format. So it was
Mhm.
me, my husband, and a few other people, one of whom I already knew as well. We went to, Mexico, and it was like 3 or 4 days of just being truly cared for. Like,
Mm.
as soon as I got there, you know, every meal had been prepped for, I was being escorted everywhere. I had translators with me, and there was just, um my friend, her husband's an artist, and she also used to work in, like, movie production, so
Mm.
their home is just so beautiful, just, like, being surrounded in beauty and nature for a few days, and then sitting in ceremony with a psychiatrist and a provider, and a trained therapist, and just
Mm.
feeling that container, but also, like, it not at all feeling more clinical than, like, a prep session and intake form.
Mhm.
Like, everything else was like, you're in someone's home. This is somebody who cares about you. You've, like, built relationships with these people the last couple of days. You've gotten
Mm.
to know people in a really vulnerable way. And so it just was like an indigenous healing circle.
Mm.
Like, the medicine was such a small part of the whole experience.
Mm. So the whole setup, feeling
Yeah.
so cared for, feeling so connected and safe, and the spaciousness was bigger than the medicine.
bigger than the medicine. And, I tell all my clients, I do integration, prep and integration for clients now. And I tell them like the medicine is is like 10% of
Mm,
what you end up going through.
mm,
Like the true medicine, true healing is what happens with the community that bears witness to you, the community that you spend time with afterwards, and what you do with what you experience afterwards.
mhm. Yeah. So what did you notice that might have surprised you? What happened for you?
It was much easier for me to allow myself to be cared for.
Mm.
Like, and I think many therapists feel this way is like I think some people self-select. Like I was a parentified child, immigrant family, very much like had to handle all my stuff at a very early age. And so like letting people in and letting people take care of me has always been a challenge. I've always been the caregiver. I think many healers are. And allowing myself to receive and not like, keep one eye open, like, let all my walls down.
Yeah. How do you think that was possible? Is it everything you just described? Like you
Mm.
saw kind of like no cracks in the
Yeah.
container, the safety?
I think it really had to be that unique situation. Like, I think I had to be out of San Francisco, out of the Bay Area, out of America,
Mm-hmm.
like, where I was really behold like, I didn't really I like, I understand and am comfortable in Spanish insofar as, like, it's a familiar second language to me here in the city,
Mm-hmm.
and I took 3 years of it in high school, but not fluent at all, can kind of pick up words here and there. And then, like, we had spent a few days in Mexico before we traveled to the retreat center. So allowing myself to be almost in vacation mode where my
Mm-hmm.
guard was down was important part of it. But also like sitting in community with a colleague who had already sat in ceremony with at a ketamine training. Like I
Mm-hmm.
and in that ketamine training, I should back up and say that, like, I knew her, my friend Cecilia, because I role played the role of her therapist during her medicine experience.
Mm.
And so, like, there was, like, already, a relationship there that was warm and loving, and then the other participants there sort of I hadn't met 2 of them previously, but I sort of could understand the series of relationships, like, I knew the people that I connected them to the retreat, and so we were all sort of in community already in so many ways. We also had a prep session over Zoom beforehand where we met each other,
Mm.
um, so that was important. Prep is so important.
Wow. Okay. So everybody who was involved
Mhm.
had met.
Like the week prior.
Okay. So I'm just kind of picturing like you're sort of checking out each other's nervous systems, like
Mhm.
you're letting each other in ahead of time. And maybe some of it's even like unconscious, what we're able to pick up about someone else
Yeah.
in
Well, and I think
preparation.
the decision to sit in a group ceremony experience,
Mhm.
I think requires a unique person who has exhausted a lot of other avenues. Like,
Yes.
like, I don't think psychedelics is anybody's first line, treatment or intervention. So, like, I think people who pursue these modalities in general, I think have tried a lot of things and have tried being vulnerable and have felt unsafe. So I think that foundation of that shared understanding of like, oh, you are coming to this for a reason. Like, you're
Mhm.
hurt. Like, not that we ever need to compare hurts, but like I think it's a shared understanding that everyone's version of hurt is, like, pretty profound and significant.
Yes. And maybe also like, yeah, their drive to heal that hurt
Yeah.
is pretty huge too. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what happened for you during the experience?
During the experience, I just felt so much grief that I was, like, using all of my psychic energy and control to lock down just to, like, get through the day to day
Mm.
was finally just, like, allowed to dislodge.
Wow.
Kinda like everything's really stiff in there and something kind of, when you go in and you, like, hit the vending machine a couple times to, like,
Yeah.
shake your food out, like, I just felt like I needed somebody to, like, give me a strong, like, cat, and that's what the
Yeah.
medicine and the container did for me.
Mm. Did you stay, in your experience, were you interacting with other people? Were you mostly kind of nearby but going inside? What was it like?
Yeah, we were all in the shared room and everybody was having their own experience. I surprisingly stayed pretty internal, which I think was good for me. I think if I had opened up my eye shades and looked around, I would have been like paying a lot of attention externally.
Mm,
And they suggested to like keep our eye shades on as long as we felt comfortable and try to stay within our own little cocoon.
mm,
And so I felt like I was like wrapped up in like I don't know why the term banana leaf comes up. Maybe it's because I'm Chinese and I think about food a lot. But like I
mm,
felt just like wrapped up in a little cocoon. And I was re experiencing all the feelings that I had when I had lost clients, my client that I lost to suicide wasn't the first time. I had worked in end of life care and grief and bereavement at the height of the pandemic in
oh, wow.
Vermont. So, like, I had lost a lot of clients to like COVID or issues stemming after COVID, and just like there's a lot of loss in those times. And so, just like the floodgate of like the people that I had watched cross over, some who I could distinctly remember their names and details of their lives, and some whom I had only like 20, 30 minutes with
Mm,
before, and sort of just like feeling myself honoring each spirit and each memory, but sort of like in this space, in this internal space where the medicine helped me be much more compassionate
mm,
and, like, I didn't have to deal with the guilt. I didn't have to deal with the what ifs or what could I have done differently or, like, my anger toward the American healthcare system, which
mhm,
can so much sometimes override my personal experience and needing to move through my personal grief. And so that really just allowed me to, like, honor all of that. And
mm,
I couldn't tell you if it was 20 minutes or 2 hours.
mm.
Like, it was just, like, one of those things that felt so timeless.
It just happened in the way that it absolutely needed to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you having that you remember or were aware of, like, were you having, like, a somatic experience while you were in that?
Yeah, I think, like, for me, my tension sits sort of on my chest, like,
Mhm,
the weight of something on my chest, and I could feel it being lifted. Same with my back. I think things like, I think I feel, like, pressure on my chest and on my back a lot, often in the
mhm,
back of my head too, where it's just, like, this, like, throbbing pressure. Yeah, it was like somebody, like, birds and Cinderella coming in and just, like, taking weights off of me.
mhm,
And me allowing it. I think so much of putting pressure on myself is, like, knowing that, like, somatically knowing that I need to, like, breathe through this pressure and let it release or just move with it, but then, like, the self-sabotaging parts hanging on, thinking that, like, for whatever reason, like, I need to suffer through it.
mhm. And does it feel like the medicine can help a little bit with those kind of, like, protector parts?
Yeah.
Yeah, kinda soften
Yeah,
them?
absolutely, and I think for me, they just sort of the medicine different types of medicine lower the barriers and just allow me to be more compassionate with myself.
Mm,
Not only that, but I have a really annoying tendency in my own therapy too, when I do any sort of my own internal healing work, is that automatically my brain goes to like, well, how can I implement this in my own work? How can I bring this to my clients? And the
mhm.
medicine like takes me away from that. It sometimes crops up, but I think more and more the medicine is like, this is for you.
Yeah.
You need to not be like I have a very strong intellectualization and rationalization defense mechanism, like without fail.
Yeah. So that, like, note taker
Ah,
therapist got to just retreat and just, like,
yeah.
let you really have that. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
so vulnerable. Yeah. As you've been listening to me talking to my wonderful guest, maybe you've been thinking that they might be the right next practitioner for you. You can find their contact information in the show notes, and I'll be saying it at the end of this episode out loud. I cannot promise you they have an opening, of course. They are really good, so don't get mad at me if they don't. I'm also a healer. I help people who are estranged from a parent or caregiver and other folks who are ready to do some really big healing. I use brain spotting and parts work to get at the root of emotional pain. If you have the feeling I might be the right next practitioner for you or for someone you love, go to anniezam.com and learn more about working with me. Anything else that stands out to you from like what happened during?
Um, there are, and then it just became really beautiful. I think
Mm.
one of the things, and people with psychedelic experience that have harder experiences that struggle with sitting with it, that I think, um, in preparation, I try to say is like the discomfort will dissipate if you sit with it long enough. Like you build the distress tolerance to sit with it long enough. Because I chose to sit with it, and then it eventually metamorphosized into something really, really beautiful. And
Mm.
I could feel the love and positivity and like being one with Mother Nature, I think
Mm.
is something that people often report seeing, feeling and experiencing, and just like feeling just really profound peace.
Mm.
Like I remember coming out of the journey after a long, long time, and at one point I think they reached over and just like squeezed my hand because I like everyone else had sort of was moving around a bit, and I had really stayed under, and I remember, like, taking off my eye shades and, like, running to Cecilia and just giving her a gigantic hug that lasted minutes,
Mm.
because like, it was just such a there were no words, like, she looked at me, I looked at her, and immediately there was just an understanding of what had occurred.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oh, it was amazing.
What was it like with your partner afterward?
It was good. You know, we made the conscious effort to sort of let each other have our own experiences so that we didn't
Mhm.
detract. That was not the first medicine ceremony that he and I had sat in together. We've sat in ceremony with each other a lot.
Mm.
It was certainly the one in a bigger group setting, but it was nice. It was, I think, hard for both of us to not try to step in on each other's experiences.
Mhm. Mhm.
Especially given everything I had been going through the whole time, like, we were in a weird place because he was like, "Me caring for you is hurting you, and, like,
Mm.
it's making things worse, and, like, how do we move through this?" And yet there's so much love, and, like, our relationship is so much deeper because of the support, and so it was an interesting tension, but there was after that ceremony experience, the next day, we did a traditional sweat lodge.
Mm.
Indigenous Mexican sweat lodge, and during that experience that one was really hard. Like, that one, you're it's pitch black, it's very warm, you're in this, like I don't even know what to call it. It was like a clay, like, house, like
Mhm.
the hut with some fire, and it was led by one of her neighbors, like, down the street. We walked down to it, and it, like, made and, it's like rebirthing yourself. Like, it's designed to, like the ritual is like rebirthing into a new version of yourself. And one of our facilitators had a vision of a baby in the ceremony, and we had not shared very much with the other people, but we're in, like, the final stages of family planning, like, so last year we were like, "In the next 2 years, we're gonna try to have a baby." And so this is, like, the year of travel and healing to, like, prepare my heart, body, mind, and spirit and soul for it. And
Mm.
Carmen, the facilitator, had a vision of a baby. And, like, one of the other people there on the trip was having a baby and not participating as well. Like, "Oh, yeah, 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 there's a pregnant person here." She's like, "No, no, 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 there's another one." And she said it was mine, so she saw my baby,
Whoa.
and, I completely believe her because 'cause I've had other medicine sessions where I've seen my child.
Yeah.
I've had medicine sessions where I've seen my friends' future children, and I think right now I'm, like, really cultivating this maternal energy, but it was just wild that she saw it because, like, other people knew, but I hadn't brought it up at all. I was focused on talking about other things. So, you know, I am normally very spiritually skeptical, but every now and then some things happen. I'm like, "Yeah, this is what we
Yeah.
don't know."
Where was it? I just heard this thing where I was like, "Yeah, that's right." Doesn't matter, but it resonated with me. I have a really skeptical part whenever I'm doing anything
Uh-huh.
awesome, and I was hearing like, yeah, having a really open mind includes having some skeptical parts. Yeah, and that, like, those are welcome too,
Yeah.
right? At the same time.
Yeah.
Um, that's amazing. What was hard for you about the sweat lodge?
It was just, like, physically like, I remember I was, like, on the brink of a panic attack, which
Yeah.
they said you could be 'cause you go in and they close the cover and it's pitch dark and you're, like, in a bu it's hot, it's uncomfortable, Everyone, the day prior had like their own medicine experience. So I think we're all very vulnerable. And I think every fear and anxiety that I had just like came right back up.
Mm,
And like they prepped us for it and like they're like, you can breathe through it. And of course, if you really can't tolerate it, you can leave. Like, you don't have to try. But I really wanted to, like, sit it out and do the
mm,
hard thing, and I'm glad I did because you reach this altered state of consciousness where, like, you really truly disassociate in, like, a meaningful way, like, you're not just yourself anymore, like, I've never felt so much like a community member than in that
mm,
moment
mm,
because 'cause we're all just we're singing, we're chanting, we're, like, sharing our struggles, but not really talking about the content of what we're happening. It's like very primal and just like you like say your name a few times, you chant a few affirmations together, you sing some songs. And so it's very unifying.
mm,
And it's sort of like, I don't know, it's like entering into something very scary, knowing that you're gonna go through it with other people and
mhm.
coming out on the other side.
Does it feel like it kind of like that there's sort of a delusion of separateness that it kind of
Yeah.
cuts through?
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
and, like and there's a feeling of just releasing all that fear and anxiety and energy, like, it's just
mm,
that fear being in pitch black and being so vulnerable, like, you sit in it for so long, like, we were probably in there for about an hour, but it feels like it's never ending, that by the end of it, you're kind of like, "Well, you're totally spent." Like,
mhm,
there's no more fear and anxiety left to give.
mhm. You really just sat in it that whole time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. So so that there was 1 day of medicine, is that right?
Mhm, correct,
Okay.
yeah.
And then there's the day with the sweat lodge. And, like, as you're wrapping up the retreat,
Mhm.
are you doing integration work, or what does that look
Yeah,
like?
yeah, we had an integration circle. I brought my journal. They encouraged us to journal, but we also just like sat with each other and
Mhm.
talked with each other. And after the sweat lodge, I don't. I, later, the rest of the day was pretty easy. We went into town. We had dinner together, and then the next day we went to a water park and went like swimming all day for a
Mm.
picnic. And so it was just, oh, this is why you have to have like a few days. Like you can't just like, go after work. I think I, like, do ketamine integration, and so many of my clients, like, go to the ketamine clinic after work, have an infusion, have therapy with me the next day, and then are back at work, and I'm like, there's a lot there. You kinda need to let it marinate, you kinda need some distance from the real life for things to really, like, sink in and settle, and for your nervous
Yeah.
system to get the chance to, like, absorb all of the learned lessons and wisdoms. So, yeah, and I think being in such a spiritual, historical place was helpful in nature.
Mm. And then did it shift what had been going on with those images around your husband?
It did. Those largely went away. They came back
Mm.
again a couple months ago, in a very annoying way, but my father and my maternal grandmother died within a week of each other earlier this year.
Mm.
And so, like, that retreat that I'm describing was at least a year ago. I'm going again. But, and, like, it felt like the last few years have felt like I something happens and I'm like, I recover, I heal, and then, like, 6 months later, something else happens. Kind of been the
Yeah.
theme of my life the last few years. But they came back a couple months ago because we just got back from Europe and I, like, with plane crashes and plane malfunctions in the news, my flying anxiety was sort of I've never had it before, but, last month and the last week, 2 weeks before we were flying to Europe, those nightmares were coming back.
Mhm.
They've largely subsided. They come up every now and then when we're in the car, but not nearly to the same intensity, and I can manage them better now.
Mhm.
But also part of the reason why I'm going back to the retreat in October is because I definitely feel like there's more work to be done and there's more healing to be done.
Yeah, and processing those losses, that's huge. Yeah. So, can you talk about how you think about just for you, I know it's different for everybody, but how
Yeah.
do you think about kind of when it's time for another journey? How do you make that decision?
For me, I've been sitting with psychedelics in one form or another for the better part of the last 10 years. And
Mhm.
I've had sat with different medicines at this point that my body and my soul and my spirit really intuitively know when I need
Mm.
something
Mhm.
and what medicine I need. I also have come to really, really just believe in the offerings of the universe. I
Mhm.
would say that I'm spiritually skeptical or spiritually hopeful.
Uh-huh.
Like, and so, like, when offerings or when indigenous teachers come into town because a nonprofit has brought them in or somebody in the space has brought them in, and I'm feeling like I can handle it and I'm feeling called for it, I just listen to that voice. And I think it's a deeply personal decision. I think just starting out, if I was new to this journey, I would say err on the side of caution,
Mhm.
because I do think there is a tendency to have these beautiful, enriching experiences and just like keep chasing the
Mm.
experience without integrating the learning from it and like figuring out how to live a life without needing the journeys. Feel like you need the journeys more frequently. Um, because I'm sort of hoping to get pregnant in the next year, I'm a little bit like, okay, let me get some of these underneath my belt before I stop for several years. So
Yeah.
right now, my intuition has really called me to the medicine work much more frequently than I have in the past. But I think some of that is because I've had several losses over the years. I'm in the middle of a huge life transition, and I finally feel like, honestly, I'm sort of going to miss the medicine work.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
I so badly want to be a mother. I'm very much looking forward to it. Like, it's the right time. I think that the timeline that we're on is makes a lot of sense. And like, I'm actively grieving this freedom and this
Yeah.
relationship with the medicine because I do think it's going to change. But I've learned through the medicine work too that there's a lot of ways to have alternative consciousness. There's a lot of different ways to have like sort of a psychedelic experience without ingesting anything.
What have some of those been for you?
Oh, man, I go to a lot of music festivals, and,
Uh-huh.
like, those are fantastic.
So even without psychedelics, like, that
Yeah.
community, the music,
The
the
music, the environment, and, like,
Mm.
we were in Europe for Tomorrowland, a music festival, and, people are like, "Oh, are you gonna do anything?" And I'm like, I actually, over the last few years, like, the amount that I ingest during medicine sessions has actually decreased.
Mm.
The frequency might have increased, but the dosage has decreased because I think my soul and my body are just more open to being present and being genuinely connected to my environment that I don't need as much help to get
Mm.
there anymore through the medicine work because my nervous system has calmed down so much. I'm not as hypervigilant. But music plays a huge role in my life to help me have those moments.
Mm.
And that's what I do with my clients in their prep and integration. Like, I spend a lot of time crafting and working on playlists for my
Mm.
clients for their medicine. And, like, I think some people know, like, different people focus on different things, but I think the music is such an important part. Music has the power to evoke certain emotions in us. So I think we should spend more time on
Wow.
the music part.
Ooh, okay. So you encourage your clients to actually listen during the time when they're on the medicine.
Mhm.
And how do you choose the music?
We choose it together.
Uh-huh.
We usually use something like just shamanic drumming, something that is feels very natural and,
Mm.
um, like, very one with Mother Nature. I use music that's really has, like, deep tribal drums or
Mm.
flutes, or maybe have birds in the background. But I'll also ask my clients if there are songs that are meaningful to them. And I won't
Mhm.
use the song itself. Like, I won't use the actual pop version of whatever song, but
Mhm.
I'll find a violin arrangement or an a cappella
Mm.
arrangement or some other remix of it that's longer too, so they can sit it. And going back to, like, my work in generational trauma healing, like,
Yeah.
when my dad was dying, I listened to all these songs his karaoke go-tos, um,
Oh.
and, like, I will continue to listen to them, and my
Mm.
relationship with them has shifted a lot, a very complicated relation, like I think many of us do, strained relationship with my father, and then he died.
Mm.
And so learning how to be in relationship with him now in memory,
Mhm.
has been, something that has been I continue to work through it. It ebbs and flows, but I have a lot more compassion for him now that I couldn't
Mm.
have when he was alive, and that's something I have to grapple with. And listening to the music that he listened to puts me into his time period.
Mm.
And then when my grandmother died shortly after he did, surprisingly, a dear, dear friend of mine sent me this like it's contemporary, it's new, but it's like inspired by like 60s like Beach Boysy music, but it's in Vietnamese. Like
Uh-huh.
it like sounds like it would play in Vietnam in the 60s. And like I don't know if my grandmother ever listened to this music, but it puts me in a place and a time that
Yeah.
maybe this is her environment.
Yeah, like, being able to sort of hear the texture of
Yeah,
that time and place.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, anything else that you wanna share about healing generational trauma?
I think it's so personal, like, after coming back from that retreat really jump-started other psychedelic healing experiences for me. I started apprenticing under somebody in psychedelic somatic experiencing.
Mm.
And that was using cannabis, where it was an IFS model,
Mhm.
which I know you've talked about on your podcast quite a bit,
Mm.
and, it's just like, internally narrating your somatic experiences to see what arise, and through that, I was really able to, like, confront, an early childhood part that I had forgotten
Mm.
about. Well, maybe actually, I shouldn't say forgotten about, I had locked away and
Yeah.
wasn't ready to look at, and she reemerged, and in that work, I was able to reintegrate her, like, this four-year-old version of myself,
Mm.
who I think was lost to me for a long time. I was able to reintegrate her into me as an adult.
Amazing.
So,
Yeah. Wow. Any gifts that she brought that you kinda still tap into?
yeah, I think her innocence,
Mhm.
her innocence and confusion.
Mhm.
Like, 4-year-old Cheryl didn't really understand why her parents were making the decisions they were making. And
Mhm.
as an adult, sort of standing on the precipice like, soon becoming a parent myself, holding both, holding that 4-year-old Cheryl could be innocent and confused and, like, still love her parents,
Mhm.
and yet also feel really angry and resentful that they didn't have the tools to love her the way she needed to be loved.
Mhm.
Both can be true.
Mhm. Yeah. And did it feel like she was able to get some comfort and safety from you?
Yeah, yeah, like,
Yeah.
being able to absorb her and give her a hug in my
Yeah.
mind's eye and just, like, she wanted to be seen. She just needed someone to say, like, "Yeah, you can be resentful, you can be mad,
Yeah.
and you can still love your parents," and, like, all of that can be true and authentic and real, and that's okay. And you don't have to choose one or the other, but feeling one doesn't negate the other.
Mhm. Yeah, what a relief for her.
Mhm.
And so that I think I've heard, a demo of one session of what you're talking something similar to what you're talking about. And so you've learned that method and you got to also as we do,
Yeah.
you got to then also do that method.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, you learn best by doing your own work, right?
absolutely.
Like,
Yeah,
I learned more about being a therapist by being a client than anything I could have done in my doctorate training.
yeah, yeah. So I know, like, integration is so important, and it's such a huge part of this, and it's such a huge part of your work. Like, how do you think about integration in your own life in terms of do you feel like you're kinda always integrating? Or do you
Always.
yeah, okay, yeah, can you talk about
Always.
that?
I think my integration I think we think about integration as, like, you go to therapy, you talk about your experiences, you journal your experiences,
Uh-huh.
and you keep reflecting, which, like, important. But for me, integration is, like, coming home and, like, being a good villager and
Hmm.
treating every in my life with love and compassion and, like, calling my mom every weekend and going to see my mom on the weekends and, like, not picking that fight and, like,
Mm.
working on rebuilding our relationship or, like, bringing food to somebody's house and loving
Mm.
people the way I want to be loved. And like for me, integration is like, well, how do you wish you were treated throughout your life before
Mm.
it got all hard? And how do you
Mm.
practice forgiveness in your life every day so that you can lead a life that the medicine has shown you is possible? A more compassionate version of yourself, a more peaceful version of yourself, a less resentful version of yourself. Somebody who can be proud of themselves, wants to continue the work and sharing the gifts that the medicine has given me. So integration isn't just like, I'm going to write everything down and like think about all the peace that I have. But it's like, well, how am I putting peace out there? How am I putting love out into the world?
Mm. Has it changed your relationships? Like, your with friends, neighbors, everybody?
Absolutely. But I would also say symbiotically, my relationships with my friends have changed too. Like as they've sat with the medicine and we've
Mm.
like facilitated for each other or like set containers for each other, our relationships have deepened and we've shared more vulnerably with each other. I have friends who I met and, within the first night of meeting them at a holiday party, we felt so close and we got like so close so quickly. Like I think I people that I've connected with who've also found psychedelics, I think go through this transformative process and are like, oh, you like find your people and you like don't let go.
Mm.
And like maybe I've spent a total of 6 hours with these people, but like I would do anything for them.
Mm. Yeah. Have there been any friendships that I mean, I guess it always happens. I was just gonna say, have there been any friendships that you've let go of in the process, like, that didn't serve you
Yeah.
anymore?
Yeah. And being vulnerable and being honest with people is such a funny thing. Like I've definitely let go of friendships that needed to be let go of in the past, but maybe at the time when I was letting go of them, I could have handled it more tactfully, or it could have warranted a conversation, or I wasn't as aware of what was happening. I was just working off of anger and resentment and ignoring people. And in the medicine work that those relationships have come back to me and I've had fantasies about resolving these relationships under the medicine. I
Mm.
wish I could say I was brave enough to have actually followed through with any of
Mhm.
these. I
Mhm.
think the mental practice of it doing it in my head was enough for me and I've thought about like reaching out to these people and then ultimately a combination of like, well, that's terrifying and scary. What if you get rejected? But also like I would be reaching out because I need the self-soothing
Mhm.
and it'd be weird. Like society, we have weird rules about what happens when you like lose touch with someone. I my college boyfriend's family had a really profound impact on me. Like,
Mm.
he he was amazing and wonderful, but our relationship was very much of like a college time. Like it was never gonna work outside of that, but I was in my 20s and I didn't know how to voice that. And when things ended, they ended later than they should have. And so there was a lot of hurt there, but also like I couldn't end it because I loved his parents so much.
Mm.
And I will talk about his parents, particularly his mother and his father as well, but his parents all the time, like, to anybody who knows me, like, they are, like, parental figures to me. And I did when my father was dying, my father died of a stroke, so I had about a 2-week window where he was in the active dying process that we were in limbo, but I wrote to them, I emailed them
Mm.
just to let them know what was happening. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just like my dad is dying and like you guys are my parent figures and you've been there for me. And they were so lovely and sweet. And I like felt like I was being disrespectful to my ex by like reaching out to his
Mm.
family. And so I did not invite them to my father's funeral. And that's something I do regret,
Mm.
which I didn't realize until a recent medicine ceremony session that I had that I was like, "Oh, maybe if you had, like, sat with the medicine or just been more in tune," and, like, I'm not gonna get mad at myself for, like, behaving the way I needed to through those last few months or last those weeks that I just had to make decisions along the way for my
Yeah.
dad. But, even now, like, the medicine always teaches you lessons, and, like, maybe I'll do differently in the future.
Mhm. Yeah. It, like, just gives you these messages or these opportunities to see new things. Yeah. Yeah. This has been so amazing, Cheryl. Anything else you wanna say that I didn't give you a chance to say?
Gosh, no, I don't know. It was so nice. This is the integration, like, sitting here and
Mm.
reflecting back, this is our, like, the last couple of years, the last 18 months, and just, like, reflecting on how they've changed me, like, is a part of the integration, right? Just getting the opportunity to talk about it with you has been so wonderful to revisit these memories and these insights.
Thank you. It's really special.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. You can learn more about Dr. Cheryl Tien at teahousepsychotherapy.com. I want to thank Ames Palms for editing this podcast. If you found this episode supportive, please do a couple of things. Share it with your favorite therapist or healer. That is absolutely the most important way we reach more people. And if you haven't already, please hit follow and give us 5 stars. That is so helpful to this podcast. And thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time.